Hi there, 90s fans. This video will feature my collection of 1990s Ninja Turtles action figures. Hopefully it will bring back some memories. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do here is show off some of the main characters, main Turtles characters individually, and then from there I'll move on and just show the rest of them as a group because it would take forever to show each figure that I have individually. So we'll just do a handful of them like that, and then we'll go through and show the rest as a group. So the very first one I've got here is from the original group of Turtles from the cartoon, and this is Leonardo, the leader. He's got his swords here. The one's kind of bent. I guess that happens over the years. What are you going to do? But overall, not much wear and tear. I don't know if you could really tell, but part of his belt or his little weapon holder here is missing, but that's about it. Other than that, he's in pretty solid shape. He doesn't really stand up very well. That was kind of the problem with some of these turtle figures from back then. As you can see, his one foot is kind of bent awkwardly, so it makes him very difficult to stand. Which, if you could see in the upper left-hand corner, I have these the four original Turtles on a little shelf, and the reason I have them there is because they could lean back against the wall, so it makes them a little bit easier to stand. But anyway, this one is Leonardo. Next, we have Donatello with his bow staff. He was my personal favorite turtle when I was a little kid, and still to this day. I don't know why. He was just like a smart turtle, always seemed to know the right thing to do. I just always liked him. He was always my favorite. So he's got his bow staff. He has the same issue as Leonardo. If you could see, his little bow staff holder in the back is broke. Other than that, he's in really good shape, though. The one thing I liked about these original figures, I don't know if you were able to tell with Leonardo, but they all were slightly different shades of green. Leonardo was a little bit lighter green. Donatello is darker, and then Raphael is lighter, even lighter than Leonardo, and then Michelangelo is kind of in between, so it gave him a little bit of individuality. They each have kind of different poses, different faces. They actually don't look that much like the cartoon Turtles. They're a little bit less happy-go-lucky. Like Donatello's gritting his teeth. He looks like he's ready for a fight. But they were made pretty nicely. Like I said, I played with these a lot when I was a kid, and they've held up throughout the years, so... Alright, and next we've got Raphael. He's only got one sai. I believe I'm missing the other sai, so it's kind of like in the original movie when Raphael lost his sai at the beginning. But unlike the other Turtles, he still has his little weapon holders there. He's got his side holders, and he's got one on the back too that's perfectly intact. So he's probably in the best shape of the three so far. He's doing pretty well. So I guess if I was reviewing these original figures, I'd have to say that the quality of them is pretty well. I mean, these are action figures from the late 80s, pushing on, 25, 30 years ago now, and they were played with a lot, and they still are holding up today. And lastly, of the original Turtles, we've got Michelangelo, the party dude. Probably the most fan favorite of all the Ninja Turtles. I remember when I was a kid, everybody loved Michelangelo. He was definitely the one that appealed to most of the kids. He was pretty happy-go-lucky, loved the pizza. I couldn't fit the nunchucks in his hands, so I've got them in his little weapon holder, which is still intact, as you can see. So that's nice. He really doesn't stand. He's the worst to stand up of all of them. He doesn't even stand up a little bit. His issue, he's decently intact. His head is a little bit loose. Other than that, not in bad shape. So that is the four original Ninja Turtles classics. Like I said, they're all in pretty solid shape, held up over the years, and we will move on. Alright, so up next we have Splinter, the master and father, if you will, of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He comes with a bow and arrow and a little cape that I was able to wrap around him and a belt. So the other cool thing, in addition to saving the figures from when I was a kid, I also managed to save most of their accessories, which is neat. He's pretty hard to stand up to, I think mostly because, I guess from playing with him throughout the years, his legs are extremely loose. or this one is at least, his left leg. So it makes it a little difficult to stand up. It kind of just caves in. But again, much like the Turtles, other than that issue, he's in good shape. And there he is. He stands. Woo! So there's Splinter. All right, next we have the main enemy of the Ninja Turtles and the main villain of the series, and this is Shredder. He is literally impossible to stand up. He's like has this awkward pose where he's kind of like on tiptoes here, and then his other knee is bent. So I personally can't find a way to stand him up without leaning him. So even though he's a main character, he is in the back of my shelf leaning against the wall because I've got no other choice. So I've got his cape with him still, although I can't really figure out how to legitimately put it on, so it's just kind of flowing. I think it's supposed to be wrapped around him, but it's as good as it's going to get. He's in good shape. He's got a few chip marks, mainly on his face there, but not too bad other than that. He was... I remember when a kid, I always thought there was something missing with him. He seems like he should have had more armor or something, but I don't know. Like he's just kind of shirtless, showing off the six-pack, but I thought there should have been a little bit more. But anyway, that's Shredder. This is actually the last character I'm going to show individually, mainly because I'm finding it very difficult to take characters off the shelf, or to take figures off the shelf without knocking other figures over. I had a very difficult time getting Shredder out of there. It caused like a domino effect where I knocked over like 4 other figures. So we're going to stop this and just show them all together in a grouping and see how that goes. Okay, so we're done showing the figures individually, and we're going to move on to just showing them as a group. I apologize in advance. The lighting in my Ninja Turtles room here is really bad, so I have a couple additional lights that I brought up to try to provide the best lighting, but I don't know if it's really going to work. I don't know if it's going to cause some weird shadows, so yeah, I apologize right now. But anyway, we'll move on to this. So this bottom shelf here has mainly good guy figures. Starting off with Metalhead. You'll notice a trend. He's another difficult one to stand, so I've got him leaning up against the side here, but I've got his accessories with him. Next to him is Napoleon Bonafrog, one of the 4 punk frogs that Shredder mutated and named after his personal heroes. He's got a little electric fly swatter with him, a shield. He's got a little snake down by his feet on the right, and then he's got, I guess that's supposed to be like a fly over there. So I got a lot of accessories with him still. He was a little bit easier to stand because he's got these flip-flops, which are just flat, so that was nice. One thing I want to mention before moving on, a lot of these figures, as you can see with him, have a lot of detail to them. For the fact that these figures were extremely mass-produced in these days, they were so popular, they were just, you know, throwing out figures like it was nothing. They were just manufacturing figures like crazy. So for that fact, I think that they do a good job at really putting a lot of detail into these, like the coloring, just the tiny little additions that they have on them are very nice. So moving on from Napoleon Bonafrog, we've got Splinter, who I already showed, and then next to him is Movie Star Splinter. This was supposed to be Splinter from the second Ninja Turtles movie. He's also has a bow and arrow, and I've got some arrows on his back there. He's got a belt and a cape, and he has an awkward texture to him. I don't know if you could tell from the picture, but he's actually kind of fuzzy, which is weird. It's different. And next to him, we've got Casey Jones. Casey Jones awkwardly wasn't really a big part of the original cartoon. He was a huge part of the comic book series, the movie, and basically every other Ninja Turtles universe other than the original cartoon, which was strange. He was kind of like a weird robotic person that never took off his mask. But anyway, here he is. He's got his hockey stick, I believe that is, and bat. He also came with a golf bag, but I couldn't really get it on him, but I do still have it. Next to him is Mondo Gecko. He was a pretty cool looking figure. He's got a skateboard, so he's really easy to stand. He's got a lot of cool details too. He's supposed to be, I guess, like a punk rock gecko. And then next to him is the Fugitoid. I've got a bunch of accessories that go with him. Behind him is Walkabout. He's the first one actually that I don't. He's not one that I had when I was little. I think I got him from a flea market years ago. And then next to him is Samurai Leo, or Sewer Samurai Leo. I can't remember the exact name, but it was basically Leonardo as a samurai. And then next to him, I've got 3 of the 4 mutating turtles: Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello. They literally mutate. If you could open their shells and move some of their body parts around, and you could make them look like little turtles and then mutate them back into regular Ninja Turtles. It's part of a whole mutating line. And then next to them is Sewer Surfin' Mike, I believe was his official name. It's Michelangelo as a surfer. So as I said, these were very mass produced. So in addition to just typical typical characters from the cartoons, they decided to make the turtles into all kinds of different characters themselves. So this is Michelangelo as a surfer. Another very detailed figure, though. He's got the sunglasses. He's got little sharks on his shoulders. He's very colorful. He's got some seaweed on him. It's pretty cool. And I don't know if you can see, I've got a little crab down there that came with him. And then next to him is Midshipman Mike. So Michelangelo is a sailor. And then behind them are 2 of the neutrinos. Zack on the left and Dask on the right, from Dimension X. And then here we've got Head Droppin' Raph. His head, if you press it down, it'll drop into his shell, and then if you squeeze his legs together, it'll pop out. And then next to them are 2 of the sports line of Ninja Turtle figures. We have TD Tossin Leo, complete with his football helmet. And then this was, I believe, Slam Dunkin' Don. He's got 23, I guess, modeled after Michael Jordan, of course. He also came with a basketball and a little hoop. Leonardo also came with a football. Next to them is Worm. Worm and then Panda Khan next to him. I believe those are 2 other figures I got from the flea market. So other than those 3 I showed you in here, the rest were actually ones that I had from as a kid. All right, moving up to the next shelf. This has all of the bad guy action figures that I have, or villains, enemies of the Ninja Turtles. First one here is the Foot Soldier. From the cartoon, they were robots, unlike in the movies and comic books and most all other universes. They were robots here. Very smart move, actually, by the writers, because since they were robots, the Ninja Turtles could easily just use their weapons to destroy them, and it was fine. It could still be a kid's show because they weren't actually killing anybody. Anyway, that's the Foot Soldier. Next to him is General Trag, one of Krang's rock soldiers from Dimension X. He's got a lot of detail on him too. He's got a little snake. He's got a hole in his boot. He's got some gross kind of sludge on him, and he's got 2 massive weapons. And speaking of Krang, there he is, one of the main villains other than Shredder. In the original cartoon, he came with a little, I don't want to say, it was kind of like a walker almost, that I still have, but it doesn't really stand up. It's kind of half broken. I believe he also, later you could buy his android body, which I don't have, unfortunately, but I've got Krang there. Next to him is the Triceraton. He's got some pretty massive weapons. I always liked him. I don't know if it was just because of the coloring. He was pretty bright orange. I always thought he was a cool figure. These bad guy figures are a lot easier to stand, by the way. They all seem to be, I don't know why. Next to him is Muckman and Joe Eyeball. They were garbage men that were transformed into mutants. Mutant garbage, that's awkward. And then next to them are the two more of the main villains, and probably 2 of the stupider villains in Bebop and Rocksteady from the original cartoon. They were great. I mean, they're classic, but they were definitely easily foiled by the Turtles. So I've got their little garbage can shields there, and their guns, their weapons. And then moving on behind them, we've got Movie Star Foot Soldier. So there's an actual human foot soldier. And then another robot foot soldier from the cartoon. I had 2 of those. And then we have Dirtbag, another villain. Next to him, Ground Chuck. A lot of these were just kind of one-off villains. They would have them either in just one episode of the cartoon or a video game or something, and then use them to make them into a figure. And then we've got Mutagen Man. Mutagen Man, I think, is another one I got at a flea market or a garage sale recently. And pretty famous villain in Turtles history is Baxter Stockman, aka Baxter the Fly, as he is here. Scientist transformed into a fly. And then we have here mutating Bebop and Rocksteady. So much like the Turtles, they mutate from their human form into their mutant form, and this is their human form. We've got Shredder, who I already showed, and then next to him, Super Shredder. Pretty awesome from second Ninja Turtles movie. He turns into Super Shredder at the end, as I'm sure everyone knows. Weird thing about this figure is that for it being Super Shredder, it's a really small figure. As you can see, he's smaller than normal Shredder, which is odd, but he does have a lot more armor, and it looks pretty cool. Another famous Turtles villain, the Rat King. He was actually one for as big of a villain as he was. He was one I didn't have. He's another one I got at a flea market over the years. Same thing with Scumbug next to him. And then lastly, we've got Chrome Dome. All right, so the last row here, I've got a row that's entirely filled with Ninja Turtles as some sort of random characters. So the first grouping of characters here you can see are the Singer Ninja Turtles, the band, whatever you want to call them, group. So here we've got, I think this was Classic Rock Leo, I want to say, with his little banjo. And then we've got, this was Punk Rock Don. He's got a cool little mohawk, and he's got a keytar. This, I think, was Heavy Metal Raph, with his sweet little looking guitar. And then we've got Rapper Mike. He's got a little Flava Flav-esque clock, and a little turntable. And then moving from there, we've got Samurai Don. This was actually Donatello from the third Ninja Turtles movie, where they went back in time to Japan. He's got his little time scepter. He's missing one of his, or actually a couple of his little pads there. All right, the lighting for this section was really bad, so I messed around a little bit, tried to get some better lighting. We'll see how it goes. Here we've got Talkin' Don and Talkin' Mikey. So basically what happened was they came with these little strips, and you just feed them through their shell, and they would say just random phrases like awesome and cowabunga and things like that. I've got the figures. Unfortunately, I don't have the strips anymore, so I can't make them talk, sadly. Next to them, we've got Toon Don. So really happy, excited Don here. I think he's got a little button on his back. When he presses it, his bandana flips around. Then we've got a grouping here of the Storage Shell Turtles. There's Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello, Leonardo. They all came with a bunch of different weapons and accessories, and their shells would open, and you could store them inside the shells. And then here we've got Spike and Volley Don. Donatello is a volleyball player. He's got a little like volleyball net on his back, kind of balled up, and if you could put water in it, and if you squeeze it, it'll squirt out his mouth. We've got another Undercover Don figure. This time I've got him with his mask on there. Pretty slick. Then we've got Cowboy Don with his lasso and his gun. We've got, I believe this is Raph the Magnificent. Raphael is a magician. And here we have the, I think these were like the Wacky Turtles. I can't remember exactly what they were called, but this was Walkin' Leo, I think, or Walkabout Leo, or something like that. You would wind something up on him and he would walk. And this was, I think, like Swimmin' Don or Sewer Swimming Don. He would, you wind him up and he would swim, like in the pool or the bathtub or something. And then lastly, we have Movie Star Don. So this was Donatello from the second Ninja Turtles movie. It's cool. He looks a little bit different. You can see from the rest of the Turtles, he's got those movie star figures had a little different feel to them. But so this is it. Very last thing I just wanted to show with the figures. I have two unopened ones. I've got another Cowboy Don figure. I actually didn't open this when I was a kid because I had already had a Cowboy Don figure, and for whatever reason I just thought it would be neat to save it unopened, so I'm glad I did. And then I also have Genghis Frog, another one of the punk frogs that Shredder created. The only two, actually, Genghis and Napoleon Bonafrog, were the only ones that were actually made into figures. The other two were Rasputin the Mad Frog and Attila the Frog. They were not made into figures. So Genghis Frog I actually bought. It was at this like vintage action figure shop a long time ago that I had found, and I bought this there. So that is it. All right, so this will conclude part one of my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collection. I'll probably be posting more parts, hopefully 4 parts in total. We'll try, and hopefully this brought back some good memories for you.